Hello, creative friends. This is Patricia from patriciafenty.com. And today I have a part one of a part two series on how to do some more advanced free-form crochet stitches. I do have this introduction to free-form crochet series, and I do recommend that you check that out, and it shows you all the basics of freeform crochet, how to get your motifs nice and flat, how to change the height of your stitches, and how to increase as you go in rounds, and how to do the magic ring, and how to join scrumbles together. So all of that will be in the description box below. And then in these two tutorials, we'll be doing some more advanced stitches. So in this tutorial, I will be reviewing the magic ring and the beginning circle. We'll be doing a puff stitch and then a fan or shell stitch. Then we'll be doing a berry stitch. And then I'll show you how to do this overlay textured stitch here as well. And then in part two, we'll carry on with the other textured stitches, including the bullion, the crab, and the popcorn stitch, and a few other techniques. And this overlay single crochet is super fun. So let's get started. Now the supplies you're going to need will be an assortment of yarn. I'm just using a number 4 medium weight yarn. It's an acrylic yarn. I do think for scrumbles that wool and wool blends, mohairs and things like that make for really interesting textures, but I'm allergic to wool, so I stick with the acrylics. You'll need some scissors, a darning needle, whatever size crochet hook is appropriate for your size yarn, and I will be showing you how to do a bullion stitch, which I have never been able to master with a crochet hook. So I created this special tool to do bullion stitches, which is a rug hooking tool. And I've taken a little piece of plastic tubing here. It's actually the end of a pen cartridge, like the ink piece there. And I've cut off 1 inch and I've taped it to the shank of the hook. And you'll see later on when we do the bullion stitch, we use this to wrap the yarn around, and then the hook pulls the yarn through the stitches. So you can do that modified tool if you like. Now we'll start with the beginning circle, and I'm also going to show you how to do a magic ring. I have shown this in previous tutorials, but I will show you that again today. So to do this, you'll place the yarn over your left hand with the tail facing towards you, and you'll wrap the yarn around the 3 middle fingers and cross the yarn over top of that other strand. Then flip your hand over and just tuck the yarn under your baby finger like that. Then you'll put the hook under your first loop, grab the second loop and bring that in underneath the first loop, and then twist, just like that. And then you can pinch that to hold it in place, and you'll have your tail to the right and your working yarn on the left. And then what you want to do is, kind of holding that in place, do a chain 1 to anchor that. And there you go. Now if you feel uncomfortable with this, you can do a chain 3 and make a ring instead, or chain 4 even. So here we'll do a chain 2 in addition to that locking chain, and then do a series of double crochets into the ring until you get a nice circle shape. And remember, we're not counting the double crochets, we're just making a circle that is a nice shape. And if you want, as you go, you can pull this tail like that to make it a little smaller so it's easier to work into. So go ahead and make your beginning circle, and I'll see you at the end. Okay, here I am, and I'm just going to pull on the tail and snug that up. And let's see, and so you can see how the stitch is sort of tipping to the right, and I do teach this in the introductory scrumble series. So we're going to need 1 more stitch because you want the stitches to be standing straight upright to create a nice shape. So now I'm going to fasten off and use the invisible stitch, which I highly recommend, so you don't have a knot. So you cut your tail and pull that through. So when you have a finish without a knot, that makes it nice to work into those stitches. So I'm pulling my beginning tail back. And so you have your beginning chains 1, 2, and 3, and you can just come into the top of the first obvious stitch there, going under both loops of that V stitch, bring the yarn through, and then just sort of fiddle with that a bit, and essentially you're making an imitation stitch here, and you have the stitch here that your yarn came out of. You're going to go in between the V's with that back loop and the back bump, and just bring that yarn through like that. And then you'd go ahead and darn in your tail ends. Now with a magic ring, when you're darning in your tail end, you pull that nice and snug. I have learned to create a knot right here and then darn in my tail end, because magic rings are notorious for coming undone. So create a little knot here and then darn in your tail ends. And I'm going to darn in this one, and I will see you to start some textured stitches. All right, so the first stitch we're going to learn is a puff stitch. So one of the ways to join on is to create a slip knot, put that on your hook, and you can join into any stitch. And when doing scrumbles, whenever possible, I like to work into the back loop and the back bump rather into the front loop and the back loop. You can do whatever you like, but by leaving this front loop free, you can do some textured stitches into that at any point. So I'm going to take the back loop and the back bump, and I'm going to join on with a slip stitch. So grab the yarn from behind, flip your tail over, and do a slip stitch. That's a nice secure way to join your yarn. So for the beginning puff, we'll chain 2 and sort of squish that over, and then going back into the same stitch, you'll yarn over, go in under those same stitches, grab your yarn from behind and pull that up high on your hook. And do that again, yarn over, going back into those same 2 stitches, grab from behind, pull it up high on your hook, and you'll have 5 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through all 5 loops, and this can be a little tricky if you have a loose ply, and then chain 1 to snug that up. Then you're going to the next stitch and picking up the back loop and the back bump, and yarn over, pull the yarn through, pull it up nice and tall. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Repeat that again, pull that up tall. Now you'll have 5 loops on your hook, and do that one more time, pulling that stitch up nice and tall, and there'll be 7 loops. Yarn over and pull through all 7 loops on your hook. And then chain 1 to lock that in. So that's a puff stitch. Now what you need to take into account as you're working around your circle, you're going to have to increase. And in the previous tutorials, I was showing how you can figure that out, is when your stitches are going off to an angle to the right, you know you need to increase. So in this 3rd stitch here, I'm going to do 2 puff stitches. I'll do an increase by doing 2 stitches in the same, 2 puff stitches in the same stitch. So this will be the first puff stitch. So 3 wraps, and pull through all those loops on your hook and chain 1, and then do another puff stitch into that same stitch. So pull the yarn up once, pull it up twice, pull it up 3 times, and pull through all those loops and a chain 1. And then into the next stitch, I would do 1 puff stitch, 1, and I might increase there. So I'm just going to work that all the way around, and I'll see you on the other side. Welcome back. So here we go, and I actually only needed to increase twice. So I did that beginning increase with 2 puff stitches there, and then I did 2 puff stitches over here, and I was able to crochet nicely around there. So that's a nice textured round. So next I'm actually going to do a round with regular single, half double, and double crochets to get some shape going here. Again, I teach that in the introduction to freeform crochet. So I'll do that with this darker color and I'll be back. All right, so I just did this round and I did single crochets, half double crochets, doubles, trebles, and then came back down just to create an asymmetrical shape. So next we're going to do a fan stitch or shell stitch, and I darned in using the invisible stitch, or finished off with the invisible stitch. And so put the slip knot on your hook and join in anywhere that you like, and you can either go in under the front loop and back loop, or you can do the back loop and the back bump. And that's what I'm going to do. So join on with a slip stitch and just flip your tail over and pull the yarn through just like that. So for the fan stitch, start with a single crochet back into that same stitch, and you can make your fan stitches using 4 double crochets, 5, or even 6. So I'm going to do 5 here, and I'll skip a stitch, and into the 3rd stitch I'll do 5 double crochets. So going under the back loop and the back bump, I'll work the 5 double crochets into that same stitch. So if you're going around, say, a very round corner, you may want to do 6 double crochets. If you're on a flat edge, you may want to use 4 double crochets. And also if the yarn is a bit heavier, you might have to adjust the stitches accordingly. So there's 5. So I'll skip a stitch and come down into the 3rd stitch with a single crochet to bring that fan down. And that's a fan stitch. And then skip a stitch and do another set of double crochets here. And I'll just go forward here. And so I just did 4 here because this yarn is quite heavy, and the 4 stitches is enough. And I'll skip a stitch and go into that 3rd stitch with a single crochet. If I had done 5 double crochets, what I might start to get is a bit of waviness happening, because this weight yarn, if you look at it compared to the yarn from the previous round, it's a little bit heavier, even though they're both number 4 weight yarns. So that's how you do the fan stitch or the shell. So here I did 4. It's totally up to you. You can do as many shell fans as you like. So I'm going to do a few more and then I'll show you another stitch pattern. All right, so here I am. So for these here, I did 4 double crochets, then I did 5 and 5, and here I did 4. So you can just work that as you go along. And so I've done my single crochet here, and I'm just going to take this color off, and I'll just do a slip stitch into the next stitch just to fasten this color off. And this is just one way that you can fasten off your yarn. I'm not doing an invisible stitch here, just a slip stitch. So now we're going to do a new stitch. Okay, so the next stitch we're going to do is a berry stitch, and these are really fun. So you'll start with a slip knot, and we're actually going to be working from the back of the motif, and this will seem kind of counterintuitive, but you're going to join on over here facing the front of you. So you have your slip knot on the hook, and you can join into that stitch there where you started with, or where you fasten. Oh yeah, that would be a starting stitch. Go under both loops, join on with a slip stitch as before, flip your tail over, and joining on this way keeps your tails all to the back. And now you'll turn your work, and then we'll work the berry stitch in this direction. So you're going to do a treble crochet into the very first stitch. So yarn over twice, pull that through, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, and yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And then you'll slip stitch back into that same stitch. So going back into the same one that your treble's coming out of, and you'll do a slip stitch. And I won't show it to you yet. I'll do another one here. So do another treble crochet. So yarn over twice, go under both loops of the next stitch, pull that through, and work your treble crochet. So pull through 2 loops, pull through 2, and pull through 2, and then slip stitch back into that same stitch that you came out of, just like that. And what that does is it pushes that treble forward and creating this nice little berry bump. So I'll do that one more time. And if you like, you can do a single crochet in between the berry stitches. I'll just do one more here. So yarn over twice, go into the next stitch and do your treble crochet, and then go down into that same stitch and bring that treble down to create your berry stitch. And then if you want, you can do a single crochet in between each of those berry stitches. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'll do a few more of these in a row, and then I'll do a few with a single crochet in between. And you can do it however you like, so I'll do that and I'll fasten off here. Okay, so here I am coming up to this crochet work here, and I've done my last berry stitch. So I'll just cut that tail off and pull that out. And then I would darn in this tail end in behind here and in behind here, and all my other tail ends, and you can see how nice that looks. So here I did the berry stitch all in a row, and here I did a single crochet in between each stitch. And I didn't have to increase at all because these are fairly full stitches, so I literally did one in every stitch. So next I'm going to show you how to do a layer, an overlay stitch, and we'll create a really nice texture here. So now we're going to do a front post double or treble crochet, and it will work in between the shell stitches. So join on with a slip knot, but in this case, join up at the top of the stitch. And often you'll do this when you're working, like if I were to bring something along here, I would join up here and work my way along like that. So for this stitch, I'm going to join at the top of the berry stitch and do a slip stitch, starting up high like that. And so now we're going to do a front post double crochet into the front post of the single crochet here. And this is how I'll start. So yarn over, and you're going to put the hook in underneath the post, lift up that front post of the single crochet and grab it from behind, pull that up, and work your double crochet. Sorry, this is a little bit off the camera, but I'll show you better a little further on. So then you want to single crochet over the top of this fan or shell stitch. And again, I'm going into the back loop and the back bump with this single crochets, and then coming to this center stitch here, I think I'm going to increase. So I'll do 2 stitches into that just to get around that shell shape, and then do a single crochet and another single crochet there. So now I'm up to the single crochet here. So you could do one of 2 things. You could do a front post double crochet into the front of that single crochet, or you can go quite deep and do a front post treble down into this double crochet down 2 rows down. So yarn over twice, skip that single crochet and go into this double crochet from the row below into the front of that post and work a treble crochet, and just like that. So you're pulling up into the front of the stitch either from the row below or the second row below. So again, we'll just single crochet around the shell, and this shell or fan stitch just had 4 double crochets. I am going to increase into the second stitch, and again with freeform crochet you're increasing and decreasing just as the motif requires. So here I am at the single crochet in between the fan stitch, so I'm going to a treble, so yarn over twice, go down into a stitch below that, which is right there, put the hook in the front and work that treble crochet up from the front post of that stitch. So there you go. That's a really lovely textured stitch. So I'm going to work that all the way around to here. Now coming to the end here, I finished with a front post double crochet into this last stitch, and then to fasten off I'll just find somewhere to go into the back here with a slip stitch, and then you can fasten off. Now you could carry on and do a front post double crochet there, and you could carry on going around like that in between the berry stitches. It would get a little tight in here where the berries are close together, but with a single crochet in between you could certainly do that. And then I'll be showing you another stitch that you can do in between these type of stitches. So next I'm going to show you how to do just a basic single, half double and double crochets just to create a simple background to set this up for some more textured stitches. I'm just going to join on here and just do some simple stitches. So I've darned in all my tail ends. So here I'm going to join into the top of this stitch here, trying to pick up 2 loops here and join with a slip stitch. So you don't join on in the normal way with freeform crochet. You just sort of have to make a decision based on where you are in your motif. So I'm just going to do some single crochets here to give me an edge to work into. And when you're working in behind these berry stitches, you just sort of have to look where to work into. And so I'm going to do 2 single crochets, and here I have a single crochet, so I'll work into that one with 1 stitch. And now I'm going to start to increase here, so working into the back of this berry stitch I'm going to do a half double crochet, and what I mean by increasing, I'm increasing the height of the stitches. So I went from a single to a half double crochet, so I'll do 2 half double crochets into the back of that berry, and then another one into this single crochet in between the berry stitches. And then behind this berry stitch I will do a double crochet, and based on the way that's slanting over that way, I will do 2 double crochets into the back of that berry stitch. So like that. So I'm just going to work along and create just a basic shape here. And this is the end of part 1, and we'll carry on in part 2.